everybody. Welcome to week 7. We're almost to the halfway mark of our 16-week semester, and now we're like solidly into Photoshop, which is going to make, now that we're into the software, it's going to make the rest of the semester just fly by. This week's Zoom is to check in on the Change the Context advertisement project. Since it's your big Photoshop project, I want to make sure everybody has their questions answered and knows what's expected. And then also, if there are, if you want to share your screen and show any issues that you're having, or just show what you're doing so far with your ad in Photoshop, we're going to have time for that during this session. If there's anything you want me to show you specifically how to do, something that you're hoping to accomplish with your ad, and with the combining of your two photos that you're not quite sure how to figure out, that's also something that I want to address in this session. I want to make sure that, I'm pretty sure everyone has figured it out so far, that there's a submission page for any of the uploads that you are turning in for the project, which is separate from the instructions page, the project page, which gives you all the details and the due dates and everything. So you guys have all turned something in, and the sketches are looking great, and I'm really excited that you guys have got into that. And I've seen pen and paper sketches and digital, like iPad kind of looking sketches, and I approve. I'm real excited about all of it, and I love the ideas that are coming in. I think it should be a lot of fun. I posted an article on our announcements page that came across my inbox this week on advertising. And so occasionally I will post things that I see that are related to things that we're learning about or things that we've talked about. And you guys, do you guys get notifications that I've sent an announcement or that I've posted something outside of our weekly module? Okay, good, because I will continue to post our class content, you know, late Sunday night or early Monday morning, so you have that for the week. But if I come across anything else interesting that I want to share with you guys, I'll do it as an announcement. So, and Bryson will do the same. You guys had your Photoshop quiz last week, and everybody looks like they did fairly well on that. How'd you guys feel about that first kind of quiz? Some good and some not so good. Is there any interest in me opening it up for one more try and just another practice go at it? Are you guys ready to move on?
I wouldn't mind another go at it if you're
Want
offering.
another go at it? Yeah, I can add one more attempt, and then whoever wants to can go ahead with that. And if you don't want to, you can be fine with the score that you have. This week's quiz on the Photoshop filters is just a little mini quiz, so it's not anything that should overburden you if you do want to take another crack at the Photoshop. Quiz number 1, as I've said before, my goal with the quizzes is that you learn the material, not to try to trick you or anything like that. I want you to have the information. So I'm happy if practicing and taking the quizzes again helps with that. And Bryson has done a Quizlet for it, which I posted to that quiz page. I'm happy to open that back up, so I can do that. In fact, I'll just make a note to myself as we go. Is anybody planning on doing either of the design kind of creative extra things that we talked about last week? The design week, or cool, or the what is it, Adobe Max, which is the one that I want to do. So quiz number 1, just write myself a note. Okay. Yeah, so it's October. I'm excited. It's October. I wish the weather would reflect it, and hopefully we'll get there soon, but I'm excited for a new fresh month and all the stuff that we're going to be doing. So the Change the Context ad, that's our biggie, our big thing that we're working on as we're continuing to learn some of the ins and outs of Photoshop. Does anyone have questions about the project? It can be general, it can be specific, you can share your screen, you can just show what you've been doing and where you're at. I want to open up, like, you know, the next portion of our Zoom to that and make sure that everybody has all their questions answered.
So I have a
Damien.
question about
Yeah.
basically I'm trying to transfer pictures of like basically my advertisement about dog adoption. Basically, the plan was to have a picture of someone kind of sleeping on a couch, and it was a dog. Is like we're in lonely time right now, so it's good to have a friend with you. And right now, I'm trying to figure out how to make the dog size like fit the person because like the guy is small, but for some reason I'm choosing images of like different dogs, and they come out like big, and I'm like, oh
Okay.
crap, I'm trying to like make it small because I don't want them to go. What's this like
Sure.
joke?
Yeah. So what's happening is that you have two photos of different resolution. So you know the resolution has to do with how many pixels per inch for that dimension of that photo. And if you have more pixels per inch, it's going to be a larger image. So if you're bringing it into or combining it with a photo that has lower pixels per inch, it's going to, like let's say you're working with our template, which is 150 DPI, but the photo of the dog that you found is 300 DPI. When you bring that dog in, it's going to be twice the size as it was in its 300 home, now that it's in its 150 DPI home. And it's going to be a separate layer, and all you have to do is just size that that layer down. And I'll show you guys by sharing my screen just a really quick way to size Photoshop, Photoshop, Photoshop. Let's see here. Where is my Photoshop? Looks like this. I'll show you a quick way to size down so that you can, here we go. So that you can really easily work with photos of different size. So right now, can you see my Photoshop advertisement, correct? Okay. So let's just fudge it and say, for instance, I just brought in the lion and he's ginormous and he's not fitting the size that I need him to be for the photo, right? And this is what's happening, Damien, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so what you can do is you want to have your layer selected with the dog on it, and in my case with the mountain lion, and then with your move tool selected, the little crossbones move tool, which is key command V to jump to it, in your control panel you get some options, and if you click show transform controls, it gives you toggles for that layer so that you can size that layer up and down. So then all you have to do is just grab a corner, size it down to the size you want. You can move it around, and those changes aren't going to be effective until you either hit return or enter or click the check mark in the control panel. And then that becomes effective. That's the new size of that layer. Because you're sizing it down, you're going to lose some resolution. So if there's things you want to work on as far as making changes to the dog or cutting him out from the background, you might choose to do it when he's bigger and when your resolution is higher before you size it down and lose some of that resolution. But basically, now my mountain lion is smaller. He's fitting within the picture. I've reduced the size and quality of that layer and of that part of the portion of my composite, but it fits now to my ad. And then you can turn the show transform controls off so that you no longer have those toggles, because it does get kind of distracting. That's just a tool that you can turn on and off kind of as needed. And I'll leave it on if I'm going to be doing a lot of sizing, but I mostly will turn it off because I want to see what the photo and what the composite looks like without having the extra little box around it. So
okay, thank you.
yeah,
Thank
you're
you
welcome.
I was a little scared at first because I'm like, oh no, like my client, like I was worried to buy new images, but thank you for your help though.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, let's see if I can. I'm losing all of my screens. If I can find where you guys are so I can stop sharing my, where'd you guys go? So I can stop sharing my screen. Zoom. Oh, here it is, way up here. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, working with
So-
resolution can be tricky, and it can be it kind of throws you for a loop. The reverse of that is if you've got your 150 DPI template and then you've got a photo that's only 72 DPI, and maybe it's something you pulled off the web and it's just like a tiny little 2" by 2" photo, you bring it in to try to, you know, create a composite out of that, and all you've got is this miniature tiny little dog that doesn't fit in your photo at all. And when you size it up, pretty soon you start seeing the pixels because you can't add resolution, and so it's going to stretch the pixels that are existing within that photo, and it's probably not going to work. It's probably going to be too fuzzy. So some of you might run into that reverse problem where you're trying to combine two photos and one of them is of too low of a resolution to work for what you're doing. So yeah, that's that. Does anyone else have questions?
How can you make elements that you're like putting in, because you have the original picture and the element you're putting in it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like mine looks like it has really hard edges. Like, is there a way, like, I lowered the hardness of the brush when I made the mask layer, but it still looks kind of funky. Like, how do you make it look smoother, I guess?
Do you want to share your screen so that I can see
Sure.
specifics? Okay, that would be great.
Share screen. See if this works. Can you see that? Is it working?
Yep, I can see a scene with a teapot and a teacup on a tray.
Did it
and a cat.
Okay, yeah, that's the Photoshop one.
Okay, so that's
I feel like I added the cat, but he looks kind of
fuzzy.
But because he's got like the fur and stuff, it doesn't look fuzzy. It just looks like a hard edge.
So what it might be, and this kind of, you guys will all be able to relate to and use this. I think it's not the hard edge so much as the absence of shadows to match the existing items in the shot. And so what you could do would be, and this would be my suggestion, would be to create a layer over the cat layer, grab your paintbrush tool and maybe sample a bit of shadow from the teapot or from the teacup, and then adjust the opacity of your layer and just kind of paint some shadow onto the edge of the cat, probably like the left edge, because that seems to be where the shadows are on the tea kettle and the teacup, and start playing with just kind of painting onto the cat some shadow. And I think that's going to help to make it seem like he's part of the image. That's going to do a lot more. I think that your edge is fine, and it's not a big deal, but adding the shadow will soften the edge and also add kind of the right light source that you're missing right now.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And just give it a try.
Yeah,
just play with it. The reason you want to add it on a separate layer and not paint directly on the cat layer is so that you can play with it. You can adjust the size of your brush, adjust the hardness of the edge of the brush, adjust the opacity of the brush. You can play with what color you're painting on him. And then the thing that you'll want to do, and let me just, I'll share my screen again and show you on my sample ad. Just do this. So can you guys see my ad again? Yeah, okay. So let's see here. So on the cat, if I add a layer on top of him, and then right away, I'm gonna adjust the effect of that layer to multiply, because what multiply does is means that anything that I paint on this layer or add on this layer is going to multiply down to the layer below it. So you'll be able to see through it. And that way you're not just painting a hard, you know, black paintbrush line. You're actually painting something that's, and I'm going to just show you like in a real general way. And here's where you adjust the opacity of your brush in the control panel. I'm going to go down to 25%. I've got a giant kind of fuzzy brush, but see what happens when I paint over the kitty. It multiplies and it doesn't, so that's with multiply turned on, and you can still see his fur and everything through it. if I have multiply turned off and it's just normal, it's gonna paint just a hard thing. And anything you paint, you can apply multiply to it after. Can you see how you can see through it? This is at 100%, so I'm exaggerating that shadow kind of effect. So let's say, let me get rid of that altogether and make it much, much smaller. Because say I just want to like give him a bit of a darker edge. So I'm going to turn on multiply, and I'm going to go back and reduce. I'm going to go down to like 15 and just kind of paint in a little bit of a darker. And you see how it's just like barely kind of darkening up his hindquarters and giving him some shadow. So that's kind of what I think I would do to the kitty. And you can even like reduce it even further to get further away from the shadow side and closer to the light source. And then that'll just, and you can do the same thing. Like I could add shadow under his feet, for instance, which I didn't, by going down, because the shadow for his feet would actually fall on the rock. So I want to put that layer right above the rock layer, and then use my eyedropper tool to maybe sample something in the moss, so I get a moss colored shadow, and then I could paint shadow right under his feet. And that might be something that would also help to like make it look like he's actually in the shot rather than just an addition to the shot. So can you guys kind of see that shadow appearing now? It looked like he's actually stepping on. So that's something everybody can play with. You know, Damien with your dog on the couch, and then Christina with your kitty at the table. If you just kind of look at the elements that are in the original photo, look at where the light source is coming from, and play around a little bit with adding some shadows, just freehand, just freehand painting some shadows on there. And the cool thing is because you're doing it on a separate layer, if you don't like it, you can just throw it away and you can start over. And what's going to happen is the more you look at it, the harder it's going to be to see the benefits. So, paint on it, work on it for a while, and take breaks from your project. Give your eyes a rest, forget what it looks like, and then come back and look at it fresh and be like, oh yeah, I can see, something that needs to be worked on a little more, or I can see that what I've done has been effective. And then the other thing, which was one of my tips, I think, in our design elements and principles, if you look at something and just kind of like blur your eyes a little and squint your eyes together as you're looking at it, that often helps too, to bring things to your attention that stand out as not looking completely natural. Because your eye and your brain are going to, especially if you're doing the Photoshop work, are going to try to compensate for any abnormalities, and it's going to be harder to see it. But if you try to distort your vision a little and just kind of space out on looking at it, it might bring things to your attention a little bit better. And you can kind of see, oh yeah, I need to add shadow, and I can see that my light source is actually opposite of everything else in the picture. And then that's why it looks weird. So does that help, Christina?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'll definitely go play with that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? You guys are all doing fantastic. That's all I wanted to do for this class, and just make sure everybody knows, submit things on the submission page. Oh, one more thing I wanted to touch on. Everyone who's turned in their sketches and their comments of what their ad is that they want, that their content for their ad in the comments has gotten full. It's a 50-point project, and I'm just giving everybody full credit for each stage for now, and I'll give you your actual grade at the very end, because I don't want us to spend 3 weeks without you having an accurate grade. So if I only grade you on this part of it, which is a 15-point part of the project, then it looks like you've got 15 out of 50, and it brings your whole grade down. So as we go, you're getting full credit when you turn in each stage, and then at the end, it'll fluctuate, depending on your overall grade. So I hope that makes sense. You may end up with a 45 instead of a 50, or something, depending when I add up the points on the rubric. But for now, I'm just putting 50s in as you turn things in, so that it doesn't mess up your your whole grade for the thing, and it makes it easier to kind of track where you guys are at. So I think for this next week, let me just look, project instructions and checklist. So you've got a couple more days and you should have something uploaded. It does not have to be complete. It does not even have to make a ton of sense, because you're putting in the comment section of the submission what your ad is, but have something uploaded just wherever you're at so that your peers can do a peer review. This is our first peer review, and the purpose of it is to give you helpful comments and critiques that you can then take and apply to your work in progress. I didn't want you guys to get it to a point in the ad design where you're finished and you don't have room or time to make improvements to your ad. So I do this peer review on the early side so that we can all give each other like constructive feedback, and there can be some conversation about it before it's due, and then you have time to continue to work on it. So the 9th, which I believe is Friday, is when you should have your work in progress ad uploaded so that 2 of your classmates can go in and make reviews and feedback to that. And those are assigned randomly by Canvas. And there's a video in our project instructions on how to do a peer review, but it should be fairly easy. You should all just get 2 people. If they don't have anything uploaded for you by the 9th for you to review, just post a comment to their thing that there's nothing to do a review on, so that I still know that you did your 2. Does that make sense? So that way I'll know that you did your part and you did the best you could. Our timeline is so tight that things go really quickly, and that's why we kind of have these weird due dates this week. But the peer review is the big one this week. And in order to do that, you guys have to have something turned in no matter what stage it's at. Just turn something in and open up a conversation about it. And if you have like questions or you want specific feedback about something of your work in progress, feel free to add that in the comments so that the classmates coming to review it can kind of read where you're at. So that's all I have for this week. I knew it was going to be a short one. Kenneth, is that your cat walking by? I saw a really funny, I don't know, I think it was an Instagram post that was like a teacher posted a thing where one person brought their cat onto the Zoom screen, and the next thing she knew, there was like 16 cats in the Zoom session. And like she completely lost control of the class because everybody brought their cat on, and I was like, hey, that's us. So it was pretty cute. But you guys have a great week. I will stay for any other questions until the last person logs off. And as always, email me if you need any extra help this week. But you guys are doing fantastic. Thank you.